Good evening, everyone. The meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, could you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in preparation of the Council Annual Meeting Notice dated December 30th, 2021, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room.
Thank you. And could we please have roll call?
Ms. Allen?
Here.
Ms. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Little? Here. Mr. Miniger?
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Vartan?
Present.
President Fox?
Here. Okay, moving on. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Could I ask Reverend Harriel to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could please have the notices regarding closed session and hearings and comments.
A closed session meeting is authorized by state statute, was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's office at cityclerk@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to meetings minutes for approval. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of special closed session meeting of May 31st, a regular and closed session meetings of June 1st and June 15th, special regular and closed session meeting of June 21st, and the special regular meeting of June 27th? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay. I think, Councilmember Miniger, you're probably going to have to recuse from the 21st?
21st, thank you.
Yes, okay.
I think I have to recuse
From
when I
the
was-
15th. So how would we do that? Just recuse?
Just make the note that
Okay.
they're publicly recusing
Okay.
these two.
All right. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And now we're moving on to reports. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. I just have a few announcements to make, but before I do that, I would just ask that we all have a moment of silence about the horrendous shootings in Highland Park, Illinois yesterday. I was happily at the decorated bicycle parade watching all these beautiful children and families, and to come home and look at the news and realize in a town not unlike Summit that the horrible tragedy occurred. So if you would all please join me for a few moments for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. I know we could all pray a lot longer. On a different note, if you've not had a chance to get downtown for the live music performances on a Thursday or a Friday evening, be sure to try to find some time to enjoy Summit Street Sounds. It's hosted by Summit Downtown Inc. on Thursdays and Fridays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. during June and July, and it makes for a very enjoyable evening. They're in several different locations around town, so I hope to see you there or see you around town. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. And now to Michael Rogers for the City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. Just want to clarify some things about our new recycling changes. So the new recycling changes in collection schedule went into effect on Friday, July 1st. Recycling collection is now on the same day as residents' trash collection, except there is a modified pickup schedule this week due to the 4th of July holiday. It's unfortunate that this, our new collection vendor started on July 1st, and then we had a holiday, but I was trying to explain that last meeting, and also just some of our communications. But what I want to say here is that just to clarify, all recycling pickups for the week of July 4th are postponed one day. For example, if your new recycling pickup was Monday, it would have been today picked up recycling instead of yesterday. Tuesday collection is pushed to Wednesday and so forth for the rest of the week, ending with Friday collection pushed to Saturday, and that would be July 9th. There is no change to trash collection. That would have been picked up yesterday for your Monday schedule, today for Tuesday. So there was a little bit of confusion, I think, in the community, which we expected, but I just wanted to make a point of trying to clarify that. And that's all I have for this evening, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. So I have a few things. The first, the Summit Free Market is on Saturday, July 9th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the transfer station located at 40 New Providence Avenue. Visit summitfreemarket.org for more information on the program and a list of donation guidelines. The Shade Tree Advisory Committee has planted a Salem oak seedling in the City Hall courtyard. After the historic Salem oak tree in Salem, New Jersey fell, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection pledged to give a seedling from the tree to every municipality in New Jersey to preserve its legacy. Please be sure to check it out the next time you're at City Hall, or you can check it out on the way out. And then finally, I'd like to explain where we are on Broad Street West and where we're going. We have heard the concerns expressed from members of the community, and we've gone back to the redevelopers, L&M and Toll Brothers, to let them know our priorities so they can present us with some new design options that take into account the comments that we've heard from the public in the past few months. These priorities include a smaller project that will address concerns about the size, parking, and finances. We will be forming an advisory group, and we are working now to clarify what form that group will take. We've heard from the community about taking action in the summer, and we are sensitive to that, and we are looking for a way to engage the community, but we want to make sure that we take it, that we do this process in a fashion that doesn't make people have to rush in the summer to sign up. So we are working on it. We will keep in touch. We intend to create a structure that will allow us to bring in advisory group members early in the process. And we are confident that by working together, we can come up with a revised project that is financially viable and better reflects the needs of the community and the wants of the community. So with that, we'll move on to, we're on to public comments.
Actually,
We have a presentation?
yes, presentation.
Oh, I apologize, we have a presentation. Right, okay. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
No problem. So we have, and I do not
I don't see
see
our
the young
present.
ladies, so I'm just going to talk about what these certificates that we're going to award to Sophie Malik and Jillian Hempel, who are seniors, and they have been very, very involved as leaders of the Summit Free Market. So I'm just going to read, it's the same certificate for both. I'm going to read that one. In recognition of your outstanding contribution and dedication as a volunteer at the Summit Free Market since you attended middle school, for being a leader of the initiative for the past 3 years, and in appreciation of your countless hours of volunteer participation, which serves as a shining example of student-driven volunteerism in our community. And as you know, the Summit Free Market is a student-driven organization. And then also to Jillian Hempel, in recognition of your outstanding contribution and dedication while you served as a volunteer on the Recycling Advisory Committee of Summit, starting in 8th grade until your graduation from high school. So these two young women have been really magnificent. They are responsible, accountable, show up all the time, and have come to council and to the Free Market Advisory Board and to the Recycling Advisory Committee with many, many interesting and young ideas, and they've been great. So I'm proud of both of them, and we will make sure that they are brought to their homes.
Right, I've had the opportunity to work with both of them, and I think, you know, I have a lot of hope for the future, seeing that that's our future. So congratulations, ladies. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to public comments. At this point in the meeting, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on any matter that's not on the agenda. And if you can please just state your name and address and make your comment. Good evening, Reverend Harriel.
Good evening, everyone. Dennison Harriel, 140 Broad Street, Summit, New Jersey. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Council President, City Council officials, audience, and everyone. I'm here this evening wearing several hats. One is representing Reverend Vernon Williams, who is out of town, who is the president of our Summit Interfaith Council, and who could not be here, but asked me to stand in to represent the members of the Interfaith Council. The second hat I'm wearing is representing Wallace Chapel, Amy Zion Church, as the pastor. And the third hat I'm wearing is myself as an advocate for affordable housing. And I don't like the term because my preference would be just say housing that anyone who can afford based upon their income. But since it's been coined affordable, I guess you know me by now that I operate from three principles. Is there a need? Is it doable? Is it the right thing to do? And I've attended several of the meetings regarding Broad Street West. I think there is a need, it's doable, and it's the right thing to do. And I'm sure that going forward, the deliberations that will take place, you will reach a compromise that will hopefully satisfy everyone, or if not everyone, the majority of the people, based upon it there being a need, doable, and it's the right thing to do. I've listened to the advantages of having this project completed successfully, according to the master plan and the financial need, and also to satisfy the fair share housing, affordable housing component. And I want to stand here this evening to commend Mayor Radis, City Council persons, City Administrator Michael Rogers, for the work that you've done to date to make sure that the settlement that was reached was a good one and was done without a lot of contentious discussions, arguments, and all that have gone on in other cities and towns across New Jersey. So for that, we are proud as a council, Interfaith Council. I'm proud to what was accomplished as a pastor and also as a resident. But I want to just encourage you and hopefully ask you to not let the opportunity slip as you negotiate going forward. At the last meeting, I believe the number of units was reduced from 140 to 133, which resulted in a loss of one affordable unit. Going forward, I'm sure the discussions will evolve around even downsizing that a little more, which may result in another reduction of the number of units of affordable housing. And I am a walking, I guess, by now, a walking encyclopedia on affordable housing, the requirements and all that, the percentages and all of that. So what I'm just asking is that keep that in the forefront. Don't let that slip. We've come too far. I know what developers, they don't make a lot of money off of affordable housing. We know that. But there is a moral obligation, and there is still a need for people, a need that people have to live who may not be able to afford the market rate housing. So we're just asking that you to keep that on the forefront and don't just settle for the 15% or whatever the percentage is, but, insist on going beyond that. If you are able to do that, go beyond just the minimum, because 50 units of affordable housing by 2025 is a challenging goal, but I believe that with creativity and perseverance and determination, it can be achieved. So your record is 1,000 so far. I would like to see it remain that, and I believe based upon what you have done in the past, you can. So we're just asking that you would keep that in the forefront and don't let that slip. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Harrield, and we absolutely will make that, it is a top priority. I think I can speak for this council and the mayor in saying that this absolutely is a top priority for us, and we've even communicated that already to the redevelopers, that if the number of units goes down, the number of affordable units cannot go down by that same percentage. Thank you. Okay, so with that, are there any other public comments? Oh, did anyone else have anything they wanted to add on that? No? Okay, covered it?
Thank you, Reverend.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Steve Sartorius, 37
Hello.
Tulip Street. I'm going to circle back to the last meeting. I guess this question was asked at the last meeting, but was not really answered. And it refers to the night of the 21st, when the council, the 5 members voted to proceed lockstep with amending the redevelopment plan on that Monday night. And then 36 hours later, totally reversed themselves, and no explanation was given. So I'm asking for, I guess, the second time, why that happened.
I think I did answer the last time. Honestly, what we needed to do was we needed to speak to our professionals. We needed to get more information. And, there were things that were raised at that last meeting that we wanted to explore more fully. And, and we needed more information from our professionals before we could make a decision.
But you had given, lots of people were saying at that meeting, why not just table it? Instead, you went through, you actually held the vote.
We needed to actually find out what the consequences of tabling it would be. We needed more information on that.
Okay.
Unless, do you have anything else to say? I think that's really it.
All right,
We did what you wanted us to do, so I don't understand why this is such a big issue.
Well, because such a show was made, I think, of passing this, and it was
not a show,
over totally
sir.
unanimous opposition. So it was very surprising to people that, 3 days later, a 180-degree turn. I guess everybody got religion at the last minute, but it was a little surprising. My 2 cents.
You're entitled.
One more question, actually. You mentioned advisory group. So I guess a lot of people are wondering how that's going to be constituted. Will a resolution be passed for it so that there'll be minutes, be open to the public? How is it going to be comprised? Who's going to be on it? How is it going to be separate from the steering committee? Nobody seems to know. I mean, will this have actual useful input into the process? Or is it, again, more just to fob people off and just say, we're hearing you?
No, it's not intended to fob people off. It is absolutely, we have a lot of talented people in this community. The mayor always says that our best asset is our volunteers.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very important that we do engage volunteers. As I just said, we are working on trying to figure out what this process looks like, because we want it to be meaningful, and we don't want to start asking people to apply for something in the summer when we haven't defined what they're committing to or what the timeframes are going to be. We want to have, we want to have this be a useful process, and we want to use the skills of the people in this community. So I would say just bear with us and let us put this together. We will make clear what the process is once we have a process.
Okay, but again, I think everybody sort of knows what the outcome should be, right? 1,600 people, over 1,600 people have signed the Residents for Summit petition. There's a very strong Facebook group, over 1,200 people on that. And what people really want is this development to stick to the master plan. 72 units, 4 stories, 60 feet height. 15% affordable housing, could be more, I think, as far as many people are concerned, instead of the behemoth we're getting. So,
Okay,
anyway,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, good evening, Mayor Radis, members of council, Jim Bennett, Fairview, 38 Fairview Avenue, BENNETT. I congratulate and applaud council for its action on June 27th, 2022 to rescind the ordinance amending the redevelopment plan and to rescind the resolution referring the proposed ordinance to the planning board. Whatever the epiphany was that brought that about, I'll take it. But Summit residents need now more than ever to keep up the pressure. The public needs to be vigilant to preserve the integrity of the current redevelopment plan. And public pressure can actually help council when it comes to negotiating with L&M Toll Brothers. Council's been working on this plan for several years and with a steering committee and substantial outreach to the public. But the public was asleep. That's normal. Former council president and Mayor Frank Lair once told me, "We work relentlessly and nobody knows we're here." Most people go about their business paying little attention to happenings at City Hall. This year, the public got its first look at the project's details. At the meeting on February 19th, 2022 in the Community Center, public outrage was immediate, and the shockwaves radiated beyond the public forum as more Summit residents woke up and learned about the L&M Toll Brothers proposal. Opposition organized instantly. L&M Toll Brothers needs to hear from you that Summit residents will not tolerate yet another retread of their old project. Residents expect to see a revision that is in line with the current redevelopment plan. Such a revision can still provide for a transit hub, partially offset the cost of a new fire headquarters, and help Summit towards its affordable housing goal. If our demand means that Toll Brothers walks, they're welcome to leave. Bedford Road resident Dory Gagnon spoke with the developer who is willing to color inside the lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Good evening.
Hi. Allison Chifo, 34 Laurel Avenue. I want to go back on what, I don't remember his name, stated. So on June 21st, when we had the meeting where this council voted to proceed and go ahead with proposing, amending the redevelopment plan and putting it to the planning board, you guys went straight ahead, voted that that's what was going to take place on the 27th. On June 22nd, which was the next night, the Historic Preservation Commission held a meeting. And at that meeting, President Fox, you gave a report for the council. And your report did not step back one bit on what was discussed the night before regarding what the plan for the city, or the plan for that you were going ahead with requesting an amendment to the redevelopment plan that you were going to present to the planning board. So that was 24 hours later. You were still going straight, full steam ahead. The next day, the meeting was canceled. So my question is, when were these discussions that you had with the developers? If it wasn't done on that Wednesday, and the meeting was canceled on Thursday, can you please go into more details on exactly what happened?
I didn't speak to the redeveloper, but do you want to just, I believe, Michael, you spoke to the redeveloper. But, you know, that we had individual conversations. We spoke to our attorney, you know, to get more information. We had to sort of take some time to think about it. That's all I'm going to say.
But my point is, on Tuesday, the 21st, you guys went we're planning to go ahead with presenting the amendments to the planning board. On Wednesday, the 22nd, you spoke at 7 o'clock at night at the Historic Preservation meeting and gave the update for the council's update, and you did not change one course at all. So was there no talks going on that Wednesday? So if there was discussions, were they not discussed with you? And then the meeting was canceled on Thursday. I'm asking about the timeline. If there was only about 36 hours, I'm counting for 24 of them when nothing was changed.
Ms. Chief, may I ask a question? Are you happy with the decision to to rescind the
I'm
request?
confused about what's going on because right now, we still have on September 13th, do we still have a meeting that's going to take place in the vote?
No.
No.
No? Okay.
mean, that's what this doesn't-
I'm asking for full transparency.
Yeah,
that's
and
what
full
I'm asking.
transparency.
can I also just say, please, and honestly, these council people and Mr. Rogers and our attorney and our professionals speak very frequently about what to do in this. It's very fluid, and it is not possible to articulate to the community at a council meeting all of the conversations that have been held. I suspect that Councilwoman Fox, Councilperson Fox, Council President Fox, was part of conversations, but a decision had not been made by the time she attended the Historic Preservation meeting at 7 p.m. that night. So she is really not in a position to give an outside or even a committee of the city information until it had been decided and she had probably needed to speak to council people. So her initial responsibility is to communicate with her council, and then she has to give the information to the community. So those decisions and information seeking was ongoing. It was a very quick process. People put a lot of hard thought into this. It was not an easy decision to make, but I hope it is one that was responsive to what the community, the people, not necessarily, I don't know the whole
Do you know how many
community.
people were at the meeting on the 21st at the community center? Do we have any idea?
I'm going to say a couple hundred.
Okay, so wouldn't that have been a perfect opportunity?
Well,
to-
except that there are 22,000 people in this town,
Which,
so we got to be careful.
That's my second point. How are the Summit residents going to be informed of the Broad Street West project? There's still no mailings. I still have not seen a mailing. You said that there's a date. There was another mailing, which I wish I had with me, about the 4th of July stuff. We still do not have mailings. Nobody is communicating with the community. And that's what I'm really confused about, because you're saying that there's going to be advisory committees. There's still no mailings. There's no town hall meeting put on the calendar.
Ms. Chief, what are we going to have a communication about when we're saying that we're going to bring in people and relook at this plan? You know, we're going to send them
Council
the old
President,
plan?
can I just cut this short?
Yeah, please do.
No person up here, no elected official has the power to do anything on their own. Zero. Their only power comes when they're in a room like this. And so, excuse me, I'm speaking, don't interrupt me. So when I was contacted and gave legal advice, which I'm not going to provide to you because that's attorney-client privileged, there was a council meeting published as soon as possible, and that was Monday. So there was communications between myself, Mr. Rogers, council president, about having a meeting so that the public would be fully informed. And it complied with the Open Public Meeting Act. It was published, and there was a meeting Monday in this chambers that was televised, so the whole public knew what the council's vote was. And the council's vote was to rescind the ordinance introduction and rescind the resolution, sending it to the planning board. And out of a common courtesy, we notified the planning board that we were going to do that so they didn't have to all come out at a 7 o'clock meeting. That's why we scheduled the meeting for 5:30, so it could be rescinded before the planning board meeting at 7. That should allay everyone's concerns because the council listened, they heard, and then they had a meeting as quickly as possible, because under the Open Public Meeting Act, you have to provide at least 48 hours notice of a meeting. So on Thursday, the notice went out by the city clerk, and the meeting was held on Monday. And that's what occurred. So there was no smoke and mirrors, and it was done in the public, which all open public meetings are required to happen, and it was done via TV, so people in the public were fully aware of what happened Monday night. And now, as the council president has articulated, they're going to form an advisory committee, and when things are notified, they'll notify the public, and they'll work with the advisory committee on that. But they're not going to just send out mailers. There's nothing to send out at this juncture.
Well, isn't this this development is a joint development between the city and the developer, correct?
I wouldn't say a joint. I
Well,
wouldn't-
it's a pilot program, and there is some sort of.
No, that's not, this is a redevelopment, and there are very
The
specific
city's
rules.
not involved at all.
There are very specific rules under the redevelopment law, and, we'll be happy to provide you information about that, but it's not, I don't think you're quite characterizing it correctly legally, but it is, under the state redevelopment law, there are certain things that we're allowed to do and things that we're not allowed to do, and it's governed by law.
But we keep talking about the income that's going to come from this project, correct? The $600,000, whatever it is that you're going to, the annual income that we're going to receive.
Maybe
from
Not
the
those-
development.
those
not
numbers are all
now.
out the window
That-
now. We have to wait and see what the redesign looks like.
And so back to, okay,
So
so,
we've put the whole thing on pause right now. We're not doing, there's no meeting on September 13th. We've rescinded the resolution to the planning board. There is nothing that's being done at this moment other than us trying to figure out how do we engage the public and have the most productive conversation with the residents who have volunteered their time. And that's what we're doing now. And we're being sensitive to the fact that it's summer, and if we ask you guys to fill out applications, people are going to object because they're on vacation. So give us some time to figure this process out. We will reach out to the community, give people adequate time to submit applications, and we'll go through a process.
but last time in June, you said that there was going to be a mailing. What was going to be in the mailing? You said you had to change it because of the date. Can't there be a mailing that said, this is what's going on, Broad Street West redevelopment? I mean, we just don't think that that's important. People are stopping me because they see my lawn sign, they see my magnet on my car, they see me walking around with flyers. Once again, you've mentioned that people like me are giving misinformation. You've said that in this council. I can't, that's, like I said, not my job to educate the residents of Summit. And all I'm asking you is to give them, everybody should be informed of what's going on. If the city is involved in this project, unless you sit there and put the pieces of the Broad Street West land up for sale on the free market, that's a different story. Then we walk away from it. But if the council is so involved that this is becoming part of a council meeting week after week, I don't understand why the residents have to be uninformed of what's going on. There's no transparency. And I just don't understand, like, just for instance, you said small is what you told the developers that you want a smaller project. What does that mean? Is that less apartments? Or is that a smaller building size, building length, building height? I mean, these are questions that we've been involved, and we want to know. Why can't we, you just said small size. Can you please elaborate on that?
Well, one of the things we asked was for them to show us 4 stories. What does 4 stories look like?
And what about the length of the building?
We've asked them to show us different options where, I'm not going to get into more detail than that. We'll see what they come back with, see if it's, and we will engage the group. I'm not getting ahead of ourselves with this. I think that's all I'm going to say about this topic. And I think the idea of sending a postcard right now, to me, doesn't make any sense because we have nothing to say. When we have something to say, we will communicate it.
But will it be too late? Will it be the
No,
time?
there's
that
nothing too late because
There's
we're
no
not
deadline.
doing
You
anything.
can't ask people to be on an advisory committee if they don't even know what the project is.
We haven't asked anyone to be on the advisory committee until we know what the advisory committee is going to look like. We're working on a
So
process.
when will we have those answers?
You know, Mrs. Chifo, one of the things that was really loud and clear from the members people of the community who are at the community center was that much of this should not happen in the summer because everyone goes away in the summer. So we're respecting that. We're not making any decisions.
You flip-flopped on that. I mean, you had a meeting on July. Listen, all I'm asking is for respect. The way that you guys are talking to me is just not, is very, not respectful. I mean, sitting there telling me, I mean, I just don't understand. All I'm asking, I'm speaking for the people that are not here. Why can't we just know? Just be fully transparent. That's all we're asking.
Because I don't know what it is that you want us to give you because we don't have an answer.
I don't want to have to sit there and one day, look at my emails and find out the meetings the next week. I just want to know how much time, how much advance notice are we going to have of anything, of these advisory meetings, of anything? When are people going to be informed of what's going on?
once we figure out a process, we need time to figure out a process. Give us that time. We will communicate it, and we will be sensitive to the fact that this is a busy time, the people are away now. The fall is a busy time. We will give people adequate notice. Give us the time, please, to get this done.
Yeah, but what happened those 36 hours in June really make us question. You're losing a lot of our trust because of that. And I just gave you a perfect example. It was, within 36 hours, 24 hours later, you were still steadfast saying
Ms.
that
Chief,
this
I
has to go.
couldn't say something before we knew what we were going to do. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I reported what were the facts at that time. And I really think that you're badgering us and saying that we are not, that we've lost your trust. We did what you wanted. You got what you wanted.
But we
Give
don't know
us
why.
time.
We just want to know why did it change?
Because we listened to what the community
No,
said.
no, the listening was done at that meeting.
Can we
Yeah,
just
just enough.
wrap it up?
Yep, okay, we're done. Yeah. Good evening, Ms. Hamlet.
Hi, good evening. Delia Hamlet from 11 Brantwood. Thank you for all of your work on Broad Street West and 4th of July yesterday. Great job. The first question I have is, why do the council members, or some of them at certain times, need to be on their computers during public comments? To me, it's...
It's my agenda and. the
No,
agenda
not you,
packet.
Mayor, not you. I know you're busy, but, I think for me... Yep.
Yeah,
It's because, I take notes on literally everything everyone is saying, and I have since January.
Fair. Okay.
I
I'm
could go
just-
back and I could read your comment.
For
from
me, when I
February,
sit there
March.
back there, it is so frustrating to not be able to look you guys in the eyes. And I'm not saying this is everybody, but I would say just,
we've gone paperless, so a lot of what we have is in our
Understand.
computers. We
but
used to.
I watch
we used
these
to have
residents.
this.
I get it. I get
And
it.
this
but
is a lot of paper.
I had to hire a babysitter to come out here tonight. I'm sure all these people had to, and it's just nice to be able to look people in the eyes. And I'm not saying it's everybody, and I'm guilty of it as well, but when I watch people come and speak and we just don't have eye contact, I was just asking. I understand, Mr. Mingers, we all take notes, and I just think maybe sometimes it would be good for the residents, and you've been engaged the entire time. It's certainly not directed towards anybody tonight, but I think that a lot of people have been frustrated with the computers out during public comments, so I just was curious. Like, is there some rule that...
No,
Okay.
a lot of us take notes because I can speak for myself only. I would love my memory to be better.
I was
than
in a
it is.
meeting today with my HR girl, and she was on her computer the whole time, and I said the same thing to her. I was like, get off your computer. I just think it would be a nice way to have more dialogue maybe with the residents. So I was just curious. And then the second question I had was, I was looking in the finances for tonight, and perhaps this might be for Mr. Rogers, but there was 2 different numbers associated with the paving of Tatlock Fields and Memorial Fields. And I'm not sure if it's a square footage issue. I was just curious why those numbers were different.
Is that on the agenda, that? the memorial?
Maybe, so I can
Right,
ask
so
that.
that's,
Yep,
that
okay, no
question
problem.
comes
You
up.
can come back
That's
for that
fine,
one.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, you know where my question is, 60 versus 105, if you want to do some. And then the other question that I had was for the resolution that I believe you spoke about in closed session tonight. So can I ask that question when it comes up, the 1294 S2103?
Yes, you can ask
Okay,
that.
I can ask that. Okay, and then
You said something about paving of Tatlock?
I think we're going to get to that when the,
I don't see a resolution about.
not a
paving
resolution,
Tat-
it's a finance it's
Okay.
a number within the,
Okay.
Within the bond
With-
ordinance?
Is it in the consent agenda?
Maybe it's in the consent agenda.
I just look at the numbers
Is it-
all the
is
time.
it-
I don't know exactly what it
Is it a
is.
bill payment?
It's a bill payment,
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
That's in the consent agenda.
So I can ask that then.
you can ask that when we get to it.
Okay, and then the last question I have would be, I know that Mr. Giacobbe and I typically disagree on hybrid meetings, but I was wondering, I was speaking with some other councils that are, as I've mentioned, effectively doing hybrid meetings, and I was wondering if you might be open to having some discussions with them on how they are doing it legally and efficiently.
We are taking advice from our counsel, who has advised us that as long as the state law is what it is, that's not advisable to do. So I would say if you want to see this move forward, I would talk to our assembly members and our state senator and ask them to please pass some legislation to protect us.
So
when-
you're not open to having any discussions on this? Because we
taking
have one
advice-
lawyer that we are taking his word from. I'm just asking.
He's our attorney.
But maybe we need a different one.
Okay, well.
I'm sorry, but no
represent-
offense,
I
Mr.
do-
Jacoby, but maybe
yeah,
we need a different opinion, because other people are doing it, and maybe
Well,
I'm
Have
wrong,
different
and
No.
I have
the
nothing
other
personal
towns
against you,
that I
Mr. Jacoby.
represent, which our firm represents quite a few, one I know of is doing a hybrid because their building is actually being demolished and they're rebuilding it. So they have dispensation because they don't have a public meeting room. But the other thing that was said at a meeting, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, the technology that we have tied in with Hometown TV, we don't have sufficient technology to do it properly. So if you're going to do it properly, you have to have technology where you can't just have computers lined up, because you'll have feedback and it won't work. So
I'm very familiar with the technology,
Okay, well,
very familiar.
okay.
I run them every
My
day.
advice is, given what the town of Summit has and the law, because the pandemic, the state of emergency has now been dissipated, it is not the proper forum under the Open Public Meeting Act to do hybrids. There are exceptions to it, and we do it for people with health issues, et cetera, but we're not going to have a hybrid meeting where we engage the public by hybrid. We actually had one example that occurred here one night where we couldn't get people on the meeting, and frankly, at the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, when we had people upstairs, it didn't work.
Well, can I just
So-
say one thing on that? I probably emailed Mayor Radist about this, but if I could make a suggestion, and I think maybe Mr. Menninger, you're probably the most suited for technology here, you're probably smarter than any of us in technology, but the TV out here has 0 sound, so I'm not sure if it's a situation from from the dais here to the TV. It does work upstairs, so maybe the technology people can look into that, but when people are out in the lobby, you can't hear anything but you go upstairs.
I sent it,
Okay,
your
good,
email to
yeah.
Rosie, and she forwarded to our
Okay, good,
technology
yeah,
guy.
because I mean, you wouldn't know it because you're here.
It was
so.
tested before the meeting, but some, technology sometimes doesn't work as planned, and we are aware of it, and it's been followed
Okay,
up on.
that sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Through you, Council President?
Yes, of
Can we
course.
get an update on where we are on the repairs in the technology or the replacement
you.
technology for this room? And whether we have a quote yet? It was in the capital budget.
We're currently working with a vendor to hopefully install an upgraded system very shortly. As a matter of fact, we have the gentleman here because they just,
That's
part of
convenient.
their service is to come and observe.
I saw your truck outside.
And observe how the meeting works.
I did not know that.
Sound, the quality.
Yeah, we were wondering.
And Ms. Hamlet raising some questions.
I saw your white truck.
For them to hear.
And I would
We are
also,
working
I would
on it.
also just let the public know that the vast majority of public entities in New Jersey are doing it live, not via Zoom. The state Senate does it live. The state Assembly does it live. The vast majority of towns do it live.
Well, we're gonna-
All school boards that I represent do it live.
How many of our planning boards do it live?
I can't speak to planning boards.
And all our boards. We're Zoom, correct?
No, it's a mix.
It's an
It's a
option mix.
Yeah, but public
Well,
meetings,
we're going to disagree on this, Mr. Jacoby. I
That's fine. We
apologize.
can-
But
we can-
there are
there's very
community,
few. You
there,
named two.
but
You
there are
said
some,
Bayonne
and
Red
I would
Bank.
just like a dialogue on
Well,
why they can do it legally and we
Since there's
can't.
565 municipalities and you've named 2 that do.
We
are doing it.
disagree.
Okay.
I'm just asking for some dialogue on whether or not you would be open to some conversations, and I guess the answer is no.
I don't recommend it based on the law. The way the law is written, I don't recommend it. The
Ms.
law
Hamlet.
was written specifically for the pandemic. So if the legislature, the better place to go, as the council president said, talk to your assembly and senate. You guys have a very powerful senator in the state called the Senate President, who is from Union County. So they can pass legislation, and if legislation's passed where bodies can hold open public meetings via Zoom at any time, then that would make answer everyone's questions. That's from the legislature, not this body.
But thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next. No, there's no line. Go ahead. Good evening.
I was sitting at home and I had to come up here because I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to say, to me, in this time when democracy doesn't feel like it works, during this
You can
time,
keep the mask
when
on,
it
but-
feels like democracy doesn't work, I really appreciate how you listen. You worked really hard on that, and it's hard to turn around and do something different because you hear your constituents. You put a lot of effort into that. I can understand that. And I really appreciate that you turned around to me. And also for people who are saying they aren't communicating, I'm signed up. Go to the website, sign up. I get texts, I get emails. the council doesn't make a left or right, and I don't get some text or email. So if you choose the options, it's very easy, check, check, check. You'll get more emails and texts than you ever want. So I just want you people to know that there is a way to get communications, and in this day and age, most people are getting their communications via email and text, and I'm getting tons of them. That's why I was communicating, because I was seeing things I didn't like. I was concerned about size and traffic. I wanted to pause. Everything you did feels so responsive to me in a time when government isn't responsive. And so I want to acknowledge you and tell you that it's really been heartening to see the turnaround and to hear what you're saying today about bringing the residents in and doing it in a collaborative way. And it's not etched in stone now. Yes, go back to the redevelopers. We'll get people involved. It does take time. Just for people to you're not talking about some mysterious process. It's just they're figuring out the sign-up process. It's nothing that's like, you know, we're trying to keep people out of it. It's that we want people engaged, and we want to have an easy way for them to sign up when they come back in the fall and not have it happen in the summer. So I just felt compelled to come up and thank you for your responsiveness. Thank you for all the hours you spent listening to the committee. I felt like communications were convoluted, but you certainly overwhelmed us with lots of communications. I mean, 4 hours of presentations the one night and staying until the wee hours of the next morning. And you're not paid a dime to do this job. So I just want to thank you from the community. I think in a time when we don't have back and forth and people turning around, yes, it was a turnaround, and I went, yay, I was heard. So I want to say thank you, not, you know, nitpick this or that. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have your name and address?
Lisa Scott, 48 Beverly Road.
Great,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Good evening.
Sue Roberts, 48 Oakland Place. So I just have 3 quick questions based on some stuff that was said before. The advisory committee, I know you're still working out all the details and the people and when, but will that be a committee like all the other committees where the council can still override whatever decision they make? So my understanding is even if the planning board came up and said we can't, you know, we don't agree with the redevelopment plan, council still has the opportunity to override that. Is that correct?
Yes, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily would, but we do have legally the authority by law.
Okay, so the advisory committee will be set up like that as well, this new whatever.
That we can't,
committee.
the council can't really cede, legally, I don't think we can cede our authority in
You
that way,
can't-
correct?
You can't take your authority, your legal authority, and assign it to a committee. It's an advisory committee, and guess what? If the council ignores the advisory committee or says, we're not going to do it, it's real simple. It's what happens every November. People get elected and unelected. So the voting public can say, you know, we don't like that the council ignored the advisory committee. They're not doing the advisory committee just to, I think somebody used the word fob or something, I don't know what that is, but that's not what they're doing. They're doing it because you guys do have a tremendous range of professionals in this community, and it's fairly apparent when different folks have gotten up at the mic having specializations in different fields, whether it's finance or architecture or design. So I think that they want to tap into that wealth that this community has and have those people be active participants in this advisory committee to help guide the governing body in the decisions made. Because I think what was clear from everybody is everyone wants this place redeveloped. It makes good sense to redevelop this very valuable piece of land and maximize it for its residents. It's what do you do on that piece of land? And I think that that's what the advisory committee is going to be doing in tapping this wealth that you guys are very fortunate to have, where, I mean, it was a little frightening. I'm glad I went to law school. I can write pretty well, but when I started getting into the finance stuff, you know, the reason I was a lawyer is because I was an English major. And so I think that that's really what the goal is to really tap into the true strengths of this community and pull out and come up with, as the Reverend said, come up with a plan that most people embrace. You're not going to please everybody. But
Right.
if the majority say, yeah, this, we can live with this, that's what the goal ultimately is of this advisory committee, working with the steering committee, is to arrive at something where most people, as the Reverend aptly said, will embrace. And so we're looking for the majority to find, commonality in this redevelopment of the site.
Great. I would just like to request that when that advisory committee happens, that the minutes are made public, or the meetings are made public, or whatever we can do to make sure that this is something that we can, as you said, all embrace early in the process, and not later.
I have a question for the city solicitor regarding that. Are those minutes deliberative? Are they open to the public at that point?
I think that I don't think that they are deliberative. Deliberative is this body would be deliberative. I think that the goal here is that, you guys could disclose summaries of those minutes, kind of like a white sheet or a summary of what, was discussed and shared with the community. Deliberative and I think that once those come here, and if there's a closed session discussion, that would be deliberative.
Okay. Did you get your answer on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. And then I just had one more question for you, Mr. Giacobbe. You had mentioned that nothing happens without council all discussing and agreeing it. Does that include the choice to have the meeting to vote to rescind? Was everybody?
No, so individual council members can talk among themselves, and they do all the time. I mean, there's nothing illegal about these two council people talking.
I spent the entire day on the phone,
So
like
they
2
can have
days on the phone,
they can have
calling
individual
everyone.
conversations, et cetera. What a council can't do is you can't have a group call of 5 or more, a quorum, without it being noticed.
Okay.
And individual council members, so Council President Fox could have individually called every council member and
I
they
did.
said, yep, let's cancel it, let's rescind it, let's do that. That's terrific, but you have to do it at a public meeting so that the public knows and is informed of what this body is doing. That's why when Council President Fox had polled people and said, we can do this, they contacted me, I gave them legal advice on how to do it, and the soonest that we could have that meeting, before the planning board meeting, was 5:30 Monday, and that's when it occurred. And it occurred before the planning board meeting so that it could be rescinded before the planning board even met.
Okay, I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Nope, it's one per customer. You're done. Anyone else? Okay, so.
Council President, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Just to allay fears, because just listening to everybody, I would say that it's safe to say that there is no votes for Broad Street West through August and September as you assemble the committees and get the, go back and forth to the developer. So I was listening to Mrs. Schifo and saying that she was concerned about timing. Is it fair to say, I think it seems pretty fair to say.
Certainly
Yeah.
not August. I don't
Yeah.
anticipate that we'll have anything in September.
Right.
Because I think it's going to take us time to get to a point where we can take any action.
Right, because we can't really have a vote until there's a new redesign and so forth.
Of course.
So I think that's just an important statement
Yeah.
for the
Yep.
community to know.
That's a fair statement.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So I'm going to, we have one emailed comment? I don't think anyone else had. I think everyone else has spoken.
Yes, we had one comment from Dory Gagnon, Bedford Road, and she writes, I would like to continue the conversation about the parking lot between the library and the YMCA. I was part of the very first conversation when it was brought to the residents of Summit that something was going to be built between these two buildings. I stressed that it was important for parking to be there for both buildings to thrive and for the ease of people using the buildings. I also want to stress that residents do not want any, in caps, building to be placed there. It was brought to our attention that apartments are no longer going to be put there, but something else, in quotes, is. Please keep that parking lot just the way it is. There is no reason to clutter that area and put a 3, 4, or 5-story building between the Y and the library. Please keep in mind, as you redesign this project, that this redevelopment project was supposed to be for the people of Summit. The Board of Education passed a $37 million bond last week. I would like to understand how council plans on addressing this huge amount of money into the city's budget when Mr. Rogers has stated that we have a huge financial problem and are in need of money. We are selling Broad Street West for $8 million to create additional tax source for the town, but now we're talking about taking on more debt. If Mr. Rogers could explain to me the school debt and the city debt and who this all plays into, the taxpayer dollars, that would be wonderful, as I am truly confused. I would also like the council to look at the lower high school turf plans and the lack of parking put in place for the entrance onto the new proposed entrance by Morris Avenue. Before agreeing to this new bond, I would like to hear how this lack of parking, once again, a serious issue in this town, is going to be addressed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So, can I have the letter for 1 minute? please?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that I cover this. Thank you. So as far as the issue about Sub-District 2, which is the lot between the library and the Y, that'll be a topic that I think the advisory group should discuss and, figure out whether it makes sense, whether it doesn't make sense. We are very much in agreement that anything that we do needs to preserve the parking between the library and the Y for those two institutions. But I think that other than that, there's no action being taken, and the advisory group will have an opportunity to weigh in, and we'll hear what they have to say. So with that, I'm going to toss the second part about the bond issuance to Councilmember Vartan.
Sure, through you, Council President. And then, so I'll start, and I'll ask Administrator Rogers to fill in anything I missed. So when thinking about municipal finances, there's the three buckets where money goes: the schools, the county, the municipality. There are times when it makes sense to think about all of these things together. For example, when you're paying taxes, you want to see how much more or less you're paying than last year. You look at the whole picture. So this year you have 1.98% increase in the municipality, of 1.6% increase in the schools. The county had a flat budget, and Summit's apportionment of the county was reduced. So what we owed in county taxes actually went down. But altogether, combining all three of the components, you're looking at about a 0.9% increase in overall taxes over last year. So you pay that, and then it's split up about 50% to the schools, about 30% to the county, about 20% to the city. So there are other times, though, when you really do have to think about them separately. For example, the city could hire an additional staff member. We're not gonna, but we could hire an additional staff member. That changes our share of the budget, but it doesn't change the school budget, right? So the debt is the same way. The schools are responsible for the school buildings, grounds, and vehicles. The schools do fewer capital improvements less frequently than the city does because they simply manage less infrastructure. The schools manage the buildings and the grounds and the vehicles. The city manages all the city buildings, streets, sidewalks, playgrounds, parks, fields, and a much larger fleet of vehicles and equipment. The portion of the school budget dedicated to debt service is smaller than the city's. Another big difference is the frequency of these types of expenditures. The schools are not going to do another bond issuance for the next several years, while the city tries to do a minimum of at least certain road projects and certain equipment replacements that happen every year. So the schools taking on debt to do these projects has virtually no impact on the city's budget. In this instance, I know it's counterintuitive. It really does only make sense to think about these as separate buckets. The revenue and debt challenges that we've been describing as it relates to Broad Street West will still continue to be a challenge whether the Board of Ed takes on new debt for these projects or not, because it's our portion of the bucket that we're having the issue with. I recognize also that the timing of this as related to the Broad Street conversation adds a complex community conversation in parallel to a separate complex community conversation. And I think I speak for everyone up here when I say we encourage a high level of public scrutiny on the Board of Ed's bond process. We always encourage the Board of Ed to fund only projects that are necessary and advance the quality of the education that's provided in Summit. Because at the end of the day, the schools are the greatest contributing factor to our property values. And this does all come back to one tax bills. So we fiercely advocate that every tax dollar spent must be done so responsibly, which leads me to say I agree with Ms. Gagnon. More information is needed on the lower high school turf. I am largely supportive of the school projects because I believe they differentiate Summit Public Schools from others, but would appreciate more information on the lower high school turf specifically. So I'll be looking to have a conversation with some BOE members and Board of School Estimate members on that, and I hope this is helpful. I had a prepared thing because we got it earlier. So, Michael, would you help me fill in? Yes. Make me stop talking, Mike.
Sure, Council President. So I think you laid out, certainly from the taxpayer standpoint, it all looks the same. And what complicates this in Summit is Summit's one of 12 communities in the state of New Jersey that's a type 1 school district. So when you look at our budget, you actually see the school debt in our budget, and when we levy whatever the total amount that they need, we take that money when it comes in from taxpayers, and we pay their debt service, their annual debt service. So you see that in our budget, so it can be easily confused that it's our debt, but it's not. Two distinct public entities, we have our own separate debt statements. I will just throw some numbers around here to just understand the difference where the school is from a debt service standpoint and the municipality. The school, prior to this, what you're hearing about today, $35 million there that the Board of Education, I think, approved, goes to the Board of Estimate this week. It's a separate amount of new debt that they're talking about, but as of the end of last year, it was approximately $21 million. And so in the context of what they can take on in any debt, like any school district, they can go up to 4% of the municipality's equalized valuation, which is $7.6 billion in this community. So what that means is that 21 million of that amount is essentially 0.28%. That's where the school district is. That's roughly their annual debt service payment this year, $3.56 million. That's about, of their $80 million budget, approximately $80 million, that's 4.4%, their annual debt service payment, which doesn't show up in their budget, shows up in our budget. We pay their debt service. That's why it gets a little more confusing for the average taxpayer. The municipality, on the other hand, has its own debt, including 2022 capital budget. We are at approximately $82.48 million. That is bringing our net debt to equalized valuation at approximately 1.09%, roughly 1.1%, of the 3.5% that we could go up to in the equalization valuation. There's a lot of statutory borrowing power both entities have, but we are relatively low compared to other municipalities, as well as the school district is for their own debt. So that's the difference. When we're talking about Broad Street, we're talking about our own municipal debt that we're looking to take, to try to at least offset future debt service payments. And so I can understand the confusion. Hopefully that provided some clarity in addition to Councilman Vartan's explanation.
Thank you. Thank you, City Administrator. So with that, I'm going to close the comment period, and we're going to move on to ordinances for hearing. So we've got a finance ordinance first. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
Ordinance number 22-3261, bond ordinance providing for Phase 3 of the local unit's allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union Counties by and in the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey, appropriating $3,595,000 therefore, and authorizing issuance of $3,595,000 bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Vartan?
Thank you, Council President. This is a bond ordinance that funds Summit's share of the flood mitigation facilities project for the joint meeting of Essex and Union Counties, appropriating and issuing bonds in the amount of $3,595,000. I will say three things about this. First, as a reminder, the joint meeting is the wastewater collection and treatment facility that serves Summit as well as 16 other municipalities. Founded in the 1890s, it's also one of the oldest examples of municipal shared services. Second, the facility functions well and there is no need to expand capacity. Instead, this project protects the facility from flooding, which is an example of absolutely critical infrastructure. We need this facility to work. And third, Summit's portion of this phase of the project is almost $3.6 million, but FEMA will be reimbursing 90% of that cost to the city of Summit. So I move to open the hearing on this ordinance.
I second.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Okay. Comments from members of the public? Okay, so this is actually a really important project. During Hurricane Sandy, the joint meeting came very close to having the floodwaters overtopping the walls that are there now, and if something like that happens, we are all in for a world of hurt. So this is an extremely important project that many communities rely on, and this is our share of. It's allocated based on the amount of sewage that we contribute to the facility. So it's apportioned fairly, and it's essential, and I very much support it. So, are there any other comments? Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the hearing. And so we have one ordinance for final consideration. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance 22-3261, bond ordinance providing for Phase 3 of the local unit's allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union Counties, by and in the city of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey, appropriating $3,595,000 therefore, and authorizing issuance of $3,595,000 bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. As we just reviewed, this is the bond ordinance, and as we just held the hearing, I move to adopt this ordinance.
I second it.
Okay, do we have, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little? Aye. Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So we're now on to resolutions. We have one finance resolution. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is number 9746. This resolution authorizes the settlement of tax appeals for the property on 30 Wallace Road that is owned by Canoe Brook Country Club. This settlement does a bunch of things. So keeps the assessed value of the property at $7.25 million for the years 2018 and 2019. Lowers the assessment to $4.4 million for 2020, lowers the assessment to $4.3 million for 2021, lowers the assessment to $4 million in 2022. It then authorizes a refund for the overpayment in taxes from 2020 to 2022. And then finally, it locks in the assessment of $3.8 million for years 2023, 2024, and 2025. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Tim O'Connor, our tax assessor, for his diligent work in negotiating this settlement agreement over the last several years. I move to adopt this resolution.
And I second it, and also thank the attorneys, our expert attorneys, who have been working on this for some time. I strongly second this resolution.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're moving on to capital projects and community services. Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9755, a resolution authorizing application and receipt of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Site Remediation Program. Hazardous discharge site remediation funds to be utilized for the cost of the preliminary assessment action at 396 Broad Street, Block 2706, Lot 1234, and 7 Cedar Street, Block 2702, Lot 2. The city submitted this application last year to fund a preliminary investigation report for the property where the city's firehouse is located. because it is designated as a site in need of remediation by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The city recently received notice that funding will be approved, but the NJDEP has requested some revisions to the wording in the previous resolution that was passed last year. The preliminary assessment that will be funded will include a site visit and walk of the property, review of databases from over a dozen agencies, and review of files, both state and local. And I ask that we approve this resolution.
And I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Okay, comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to capital projects number 2, Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9741 to authorize change order number 1 and final West End Avenue Improvement Project for $175.81. This is the final change order for the West End Avenue Improvement Project. Revax Corporation has completed all of the work to the city's satisfaction. This change order increases the contract by $175.81, or 1/2% of the total project cost. The new project cost is now $335,820.21. We should all be so lucky to have a nominal increase like this for our own home projects. I ask that we approve this resolution.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to capital projects number 3, Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9737 to authorize execution of an agreement with the County of Union to modify the cooperative agreement dated June 2014 as amended on July 25th, 2017. Under parameters of the grant language, the City of Summit must enter into an annual shared services agreement with Union County to be eligible for this grant. This funding for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 is part of the Community Development Block Grant Awards that will specifically be for the Summit Youth Center and Summit Senior Citizens Transportation Program in the amount of $10,000, and Summit Healthcare Empowering Communities Outreach Program in the amount of $10,000. I move this resolution.
I second.
Okay, are there any comments? Councilmember Vartan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I'm glad the city's receiving money for these things because they're all good programs. I also want to point out that the Summit Housing Authority will also receive $25,000 for improvements to the trash rooms. As the liaison to the Housing Authority Board, I commend the board and staff who have and will continue to improve operations, customer service, and the facilities themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, one last resolution, Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9738 to declare a vacancy in the Department of Community Services, maintenance worker in the Division of Public Works, Recreation, Parks, Trees Unit. Due to a recent resignation in the Recreation, Parks, and Shade Tree Unit, we need to declare a vacancy for this position. As we discussed this earlier in the closed session, I ask that we adopt this resolution.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to safety and health. Councilmember Little, would you like to take the first resolution, please?
Thank you, Council President. Safety and Health Resolution number 1 is Resolution 9730. It's to authorize submission of the U.S. Department of Justice Bulletproof Vest Partnership for replacement of body armor grant application. This is through a DOJ program which provides funding for body armor, and we are requesting a grant in the amount that will cover 4 new sets of body armor for the police department. We will be reimbursed up to 50% for that equipment if the grant is approved, and there would be a 50% match on the part of the city. and I ask that we approve this resolution.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then would you like to take the other resolution, please, Councilmember Little?
Thank you. Safety and Health Resolution number 2 is number 9740, and it's to authorize state contract purchase for the police department for motor vehicle recording devices in the amount of $124,334. This is the final year of a 5-year contract with Axon Enterprises to install motor vehicle recording devices which integrate with the Summit Police Department's body-worn camera systems. So this is the final year of the program, and this would replace existing systems with the latest technology so that we can move forward with this equipment. And I ask that we approve this resolution.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to administrative policies and community services. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to introduce resolution number 9739. This resolution opposes and urges legislators not to advance Legislative Bill 1294 and S2103. The legislation has a top-down approach and undermines local planning and zoning laws, and in essence, it would allow developers to purchase certain office parks and retail centers to convert them to mixed-use developments without seeking a variance from the local zoning and planning boards. While there are areas that could legitimately benefit from repurposing office parks or retail centers, passing a state law that allows developers to supersede local zoning laws should not be the answer. This would be a new precedence that chips away at local control. This legislation, and I'm going to paraphrase from quoting the bill, considers local zoning an impediment to growth, and that zoning ordinances in suburban towns universally limits opportunities for mixed use and unintentionally stands in the way of providing developers and employers modern spaces they desire. In reality, local redevelopment and housing law provides municipalities with tools and power to convert to mixed-use spaces where municipalities thinks it makes sense. While the intention of the bill is to allow for revitalization of blighted areas, the unintended consequences is that all cities would be subject to this legislation. So this resolution advocates for local municipalities to maintain local zoning and planning control so development happens in a smart and fitting way for communities without standing in the way of progress. I encourage every resident to reach out to their local legislator and the sponsors of the legislation to let them know that this legislation is bad for New Jersey, and I ask that we adopt this resolution.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Just one. I wish the legislation had clearer language about the needs and wants of the millennial generation, but I'm happy to support this resolution because New Jersey is a home rule state, and I believe in Summit controlling its own destiny. So.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan. Anyone else have any comments? Comments from the public? Come on up, Ms. Hamlet.
Sorry, Danny, I was just wondering, can you repeat, it was just so fast in here, the needs and wants of the millennial. I didn't just understand it.
Yeah, so in the legislation, they talked about, so the office parks, they're kind of stranded, abandoned places, and they can be remote. And so millennials want more density, they want to live near transit hubs, they want less cars in their lives. So these kinds of office park developments are car-centric, basically. You need a car to get there, you need a car to leave, there's nowhere to walk. Developments like Broad Street West are walkability is a key factor, connectivity, walking to the train, walking to a town. So that's what is in the legislation, talking about what millennials want and then what they're providing for these new developments, these new communities that clearly in their language in the legislation that millennials don't want.
Got it, thank you. Sorry, it was fast, so I didn't understand it. Thank you. And then, so how do we pick and choose, I guess, which bills and legislation that we fight for and oppose and which ones that we don't? And I'm sorry that I just don't understand it, but for instance, like, how do we decide as a council, like, when I looked at the agenda yesterday, it said that we clearly opposed this, which I don't really have an opinion on right now, but how do you decide, or at what point in the process do all of you decide that you're opposed to a legislation? Is it before the meeting tonight, or is it last week? I just was trying to understand the process.
Generally, it goes through our Administrative Procedures Committee. They monitor what's going on in the legislation in the state, and, you know, and we get information from the League of Municipalities, the clerk, our attorney, and, you know, we get advice about what kinds of things might affect Summit, and either positively or negatively affect Summit, and we, you know, we talk about it. It's really a recommendation from the committee. They speak about it and spend a lot of time learning about it, and then they make a recommendation. So this is actually the first time, you know, that we are all discussing it as a whole. But we all have read the recommendation, the memo, and the supporting information that comes with it, and that's how we've all based our opinions based on that.
I guess that's why I was just confused, because when I read the agenda, it said opposed, but then I didn't understand how you actually had discussed it, and I was just, maybe it's my naivety.
It was no, it was just a recommendation from the committee, but, you know, if I thought it was a great idea, I could vote
No.
I could vote no and not support this resolution. But I think in general, when we do these kind of things, it's because it's very clear cut that it's not a good thing for us, or it is a good thing for us, depending.
Understood.
Yes,
Through you,
Councilmember
Council
Hudson.
President. And,
Yeah.
Ms. Hamlet, you'll be surprised to hear that I, who have been paying very close attention to federal regulation and how it flows through to states and how it affects different populations, do understand that home rule is what makes New Jersey stand out. But this is legislation that is trying to help a different set just than blighted communities, and it is trying to reach other constituents. So for that reason, I'm actually not in favor of this, of opposing it, of this resolution. So
Understood.
you're going to see something that is unusual, but I appreciate you clarifying for folks how this council body works. And because I don't think people understand the amount of work that goes on in committees and how they are doing lots of research, and we all don't necessarily agree on all of those.
Yeah, understood. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Can I respond to that, too?
Yeah,
Or just to add to Councilwoman Hairston's point, just maybe to make a little bit more of a plea for your vote. This is actually, it wouldn't necessarily apply to a place like Summit, in that they say that it would have to be a percentage of the park or the shopping center that's vacated. It would have to be a certain percentage would be vacated. It has to be a certain size. So there are areas that would absolutely be, it would be fitting for them to convert it to mixed use. So for example, it has to be like 50,000 square feet and 40% vacated. And if there's an area where people aren't using that shop and it could revitalize an area, it absolutely makes sense. My concern with this legislation is, as Jersey style does, it sort of is this one size fits all, and you can't undo it and take it out of the box once the legislation is passed. So I strongly believe that towns have so much power in terms of redevelopment and building and converting communities in the way that they would like to build them. Whereas this legislation, it gives the power to the developer, and it could supersede the zoning laws. And in my humble opinion, while Summit wouldn't normally be affected, I do believe it gives you sort of this wedge into the door that allows your local zoning and planning board to be overridden by developers. And at any point, I do not think that is a good decision, because if you look at Newark and Jersey City and so forth, and they had redevelopment, you know, it exploded, and there were local community members who eventually said, you know what, this isn't working for us because there are certain community members that are not benefiting from the money and the development that's happening in our community. So you really want that community to manage what developers do. So that's my plea to Councilwoman Hairston.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments from members of council on this topic? Okay, so with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion carries, and we're moving on to law and labor. Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I'm introducing Resolution ID number 9757 that was pending our closed session discussion to authorize extension of sick leave with pay for a member of our finance department who will be going under surgery and needs 6 weeks' time to recover. And so I recommend approving this request to extend sick leave.
Can you move the motion, please?
And I move the motion.
Okay, thanks.
Then a second.
Okay. Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to the consent agenda. We usually take this all as a whole, but I guess there was a question that Ms. Hamlet had on something on the consent agenda? No, we're good? Okay. Okay. All right, so unless anyone has a problem, we're going to go ahead and take this as a whole. Are there, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and then we're moving on to council members' comments, new business. Anyone have anything they'd like to say?
Yes.
Of course, Councilmember Barton, 3 things?
Yes, and more than that, but I'll start
Okay.
with 3.
Multiples of 3.
Yes, thank you. I've refrained from making comments because we didn't get to this part of the meeting until the early hours of the morning some nights. So I'd like to catch up by expressing congratulations to some groups, 3 of them. First, congrats to the Summit High School varsity women's lacrosse team on their incredible season. Yes, right? A big win at the last ever Tournament of Champions, so that's very exciting. Second is congratulations to Summit High School Esports members who advanced to the Nationals in Florida. That's an opportunity I wish I had in high school. That's a sport I would have been good at. Third, congratulations to all of the young people who graduated from Summit Public Schools as well as the private schools in town. I have some additional comments. We're halfway through the year. I think it's a nice time to try to state our priorities and refocus as a governing body on goals and objectives. I know it'll be shocking, but I think they fit into 3 categories. First is Broad Street. Second is traffic and parking. Third is preparing for budget 2023. So we talked about Broad Street before. We heard early in the meeting about the next steps that we'll take over the next several months. Second, traffic and parking. I think we should evaluate the timing of the new traffic signal on River Road. We've known for years we need to evaluate the timing of the traffic signals on Morris Ave corridor as well. As school comes back in session, we should be encouraging as much walking as possible and continue to constantly evaluate the parking demand as more people return to work with increased regularity. We will also have to make decisions about the use of Maple Street parking spaces and the finances around those things in the fall as well. And then it's my 3rd year as finance chair, so it's clear to me now that it's never too early to start talking about the budget for next year. On the operating side, we must prioritize leveraging technology to make our government more efficient, improve customer service, and save taxpayer dollars. We need to speak out and to recognize our responsibility to advocate on behalf of our constituents and encourage continued strong financial leadership with the county and schools as well. On the capital side of things, we have to leverage the incredible opportunity presented by the huge influx of money from the federal infrastructure bill. We have to capture as much of that funding as we can, pursuing bold projects like solar-powered microgrid, converting our city fleet to electric vehicles, while continuing to keep our debt in line. We have to really delicately manage the need to have projects close to shovel-ready for grant funding opportunities while not going too far down the road that we have to commit our own money to doing it. So these are, we had a great meeting about this before, so I was inspired to say something about that. So these are all things that are underway, and I look forward to moving forward with these important discussions in the second half of the year. And I thank my colleagues and city staff for their dedication to making this great city even greater. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Mayor?
I have two quick things. One, Councilman Vartan, the county engineer and had his guys out at fixing the timing on River Road last week.
That's great.
So,
Wonderful.
and then also, last week, the new head of the Office of Emergency Management, Joe Hauk, who was a former head of the fire department in Summit, ran an exercise with all the different departments, heads, and members of staff in the city, along, obviously, the fire, EMS, members of Bristol Myers Squibb were there to do a what's called a desktop drill scenario. And we spent several hours doing it. There was a lot of preparation that was done in advance, but basically it was a cyber attack on the city's computers. And the issue was that there was a couple different problems that happened in the morning, and then there was a ransomware request for money. And so every department had to sort of figure out what are they going to do, what are the things that we need to be prepared for. It's ultimately our communications officer, her chief, all of her passwords and access to Swift Reach, Nixle, everything was gone. So it was a really, really useful exercise in determining how you find out. And it turns out that Mountain Valley, the dispatch center, they can do reverse 911 and Swift Reach. So and we have to use phones because nobody could be emailing. The email was shut down. So it was really fascinating. And I just want to thank Joe Hauk publicly for organizing all this, and all the department heads that were there and worked hard throughout the day. Like Tammy Baldwin's, one of her things was, okay, well, if we're shut down for a week, how do I figure out getting payroll type people? So it was really a very good exercise, and I know that we'll do this on a regular basis. So anyway, to thank everyone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
A little scary.
Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to respond to the residents who were speaking about Broad Street West, of course, but community engagement. And I want to thank Council President, and I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank the steering committee for the pause and for not only focusing on those folks who are taking the time out to come to these meetings time after time, but there is also a commitment to re-engage with community members who are not coming out and who are following along, and who did, as our resident, Miss Allen, not Miss Allen, Lisa, I'm forgetting her last name, Scott, who was listening, and that this council has a commitment to re-engage folks and get them excited about Broad Street West. And you'll be very enthusiastic to hear some of the things that will be coming, because the staff and the council do not pause while the summer happens. Things are keeping us going, and community engagement is very high on our priority list. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Scott for coming, and for the request for that community engagement to not just be for those who are opposed, but for those who are interested and look forward to having confidence in this council.
Thank you, Councilmember Hairston. Does anyone else? Councilmember O'Sullivan? Yeah.
Thank you, Council President. So I wanted to talk about composting in Summit. We started a program on June 1st, and we just got the numbers in for the first month, and it was a little over 1,300 pounds of food waste were diverted from the waste stream. And so I tried to put that into context with our city engineer. I said, how is that? He said, well, considering we did 0 pounds in May, it was a pretty good increase. And so I just want to talk about the benefits of it, and the ease of it, and because I've bought in. It's been amazing in my house. It's easy, it doesn't smell, and it has a noticeable impact on the amount of trash that goes to the curb on my pickup day, which is Friday. So I just want to encourage everyone to give it a chance. It's very simple. I have a bucket with a lid right outside my back door. Like this morning, shared a grapefruit with my wife. Normally, that rind goes in the garbage, and that stuff gets really heavy. And when you compost it, you're diverting really heavy garbage away. And it saves the city money on tipping fees, and it's just really good for the environment. Now, in Summit, our garbage all gets incinerated, which is not a great process either. Some other communities, their garbage goes to a landfill. And when you have all that food in a landfill, it's releasing methane into the atmosphere, which is a greenhouse gas, which is really bad. The numbers say most household trash can be up to 40% of your food can be up to 40% of your overall waste. So it's a great way, besides what we have the Summit Free Market building, we all do our recycling, but food waste, it is, if I can do it, and we've all bought in, and I want to say, I probably did about 100 pounds of food waste, went to the transfer station in the month of June, just out of our house, because we've really bought in, and we're not wasteful. It's just, you cut up fruit, it goes into your bucket. You cut up stale bread, goes into your bucket instead of the trash. So I want to encourage everyone to do it because it will have a noticeable impact on our bottom line here in Summit, and it'll have a noticeable impact on the garbage that goes to the incinerator, which is not a great outcome. We can reuse the food and that's the other point. The food is brought to Elizabeth, it goes to a treatment plant, it's turned into a slurry, and then turned into renewable energy. So you're not getting a product back, whereas I know some people in this room probably compost at home and they get a product back. This is not going to be that. But if you are composting at home or you use a private vendor, keep doing what you're doing. But this is an easy entry point for newbies like me. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan. Do we have a, never mind.
A partner?
No, you can talk about the partner, though.
Well, we have, Green Bucket is our partner. They've set up 4 giant bins at the transfer station, and there's signs up, and you go and you dump your food in, and they pick it up on Monday, every Monday. And so there's 4 containers now. They can add more if needed. They can take away some if there's no buy-in. But we really want to get people buying into this because it's just another, as we have these assets in town, the free market building, the Summit Virtual Free Market on Facebook. We do a good job of diverting a lot of waste away from the waste stream. This is just one more way, and it has a great impact.
Great, and the instructions on how to do this are on the city's website, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, right on the front page.
What's accepted, what materials you can bring. Yeah,
It's very easy.
okay, great. All right, thank you. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, so with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Motion